What is so hard about building hardware startups?
The hardest thing about building hardware startups is it sounds cool to say hardware is hard. And I hear it all the time. So it's more a psychological game than a technical game.
What about when companies get first in? Typically in the sector, is it through a pilot process that people have to get through and pass?
Oh God, no. I hate the P word. It's like,
Where do you see in the next 5, 10 years of robotics and physical world uh, evolving to?
people say, when a robot's got to come, and I'll say, what are you talking about? Look around. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you, you've got this car that's making decisions for you, trying to work out what you're trying to do and saying, no, I'm not going to let that happen. But you don't consider that a robot?
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. Major construction projects are complex, and construction managers know that every day things don't go as planned. Unfortunately, most don't know what and why until it's too late. The best construction leaders know that the secret to delivering on schedule is for everyone to be planning together, committing to targets, and tracking their performance every day. By combining look-aheads, weekly work plans, visual staging diagrams, and daily activity briefings into one multiplayer platform, AFEX is where the world's leading projects are planned and coordinated. Join the largest projects and contractors across Europe, the UK, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand and discover why at afex.co.
All right, Nathan. Cool. So, yeah, thanks for joining us from the land down under. It's not, we
No.
actually we do, like it's always interesting when we speak to people from the southern hemisphere because the time zone completely flips for us. So, I don't know if my podcast performance as a host is better in the morning or the afternoons, but I have way more experience in the afternoon. So, we'll see how this goes. Okay, Nathan, could you? Yeah, so we're gonna have a little bit of an interesting conversation today, really about hardware and how people can um, bring their solutions to market, how startups should be thinking about hardware, perhaps how
Yep.
the industry and venture and investing views it as well, and some of your roots as well, because I know that you've held some academic positions in some prestigious institutes around the world. So it'd be good to hear all about it. But before we go there, Nathan, what is so hard about building hardware startups?
The hardest thing about building hardware startups is it sounds cool to say hardware is hard. And I hear it all the time. So it's more a psychological game than a technical game. So, hardware is not actually really that hard. It's kind of like saying Mandarin's hard. Like maybe it's hard for us because we don't speak it. We weren't born in China. But there's 1.5 billion people that don't think it's hard. So how is the same? You go through a particular school in a particular way, you learn how to use those tools, you learn how to do those things, you can just do it. It's just one of those things you do. So coming back to what's hard, no one thinks like that. So you go out in the world and you hear, I would say, idiocy. Like VCs or investors or companies will say, there are no big companies that are hardware only. And no amount of saying, yeah, there are. Most of the big companies are hardware only. What are you talking about? Uh, it doesn't dissolve that. And just the cognitive dissonance really gets to me, Owen. Like the stuff where someone will be holding their iPhone, so to speak, and they'll say, yeah, but you just don't see a hardware day to day, do you? And if you're anything like me, you'll just be looking at them with a strange expression on your face saying, you're holding a piece right now. What are you talking about?
That's all
Like,
about B2B SaaS, man.
yes, and that's exactly it. And they're like, oh, it's all about Facebook or Meta or WhatsApp or B2B SaaS and that. And you're like, yeah, and any of those things run on thin air? Have you
Yeah.
ever sent an SMS out of wishes and dreams? Or do you need a piece of hardware to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Do,
It's
do you think, like, what did we say when we caught up before? I think you mentioned something like the top 10 biggest companies around the globe. Was it like six or four or of them were hardware companies?
it's one of those glorious things, depending on how you like to cut down the apple and how much you like to argue. But there's a
Hmm.
pretty strong argument for anywhere up to 7 or 8 of them are hardware dependent companies. And and okay, let's be massively conservative. Even if one of the biggest 10 companies in the world is a hardware company, get over it. You can build a big company that's a hardware company.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and let me bore you with the details. Samsung and Apple are in the top 10 biggest companies in the world. And I would consider them to be kind of hardware companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
Oh,
agree.
and Nvidia. Most people have heard of Nvidia.
Hmm. Hmm. Certainly nowadays.
Yeah. So it's, but it's you. I'm kind of circling back to your what's the hardest thing about hardware. No one seems to know that. Like you talk to investors and they just stone cold. You can't build a big company out of hardware. You're like, but what about Nvidia? What about Apple? What about Samsung? What about Texas Instruments? What about all these companies that are huge hardware companies? Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Didn't think of that. Uh, Oh, come on. Like, I would argue the other way. You can't build a big company out of a software company. And it's evidenced by the fact that there are no big software companies because I don't consider 3 out of 10 to be very big.
Mm,
But it
interesting.
sounds ridiculous when I say that, of course. I'm aware that that sounded ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, maybe there's perception issue there. But I have to say, I have certainly seen, specifically within construction, and even other industries now, manufacturing, defense, like a lot more hardware companies start to emerge. So perhaps the narrative is slightly changing, and people are becoming more uh, open to exploring hardware. Or the VCs just change their narrative and say, we now invest in hardware.
I think there's a few things going on at the same time. For a start, like the easy one, you said construction. So construction build bridges. They're used to tangible, hard things. So that industry's not only not scared of hardware, they expect it. So you know, let's say a graded driver, because it's the first thing that popped in my head. You don't kind of see a graded driver and send them an SMS or an email that says we'll meet up later, because that's idiotic. They probably don't have their laptop on them while they're driving the grader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's more, positive signals, thumbs ups, whatever. So it's maybe the expectation in those industries, the norm in those industries, and then that feeds both cycles. So VCs will do their wonderful hardware's hard, the repercussions for failing a hardware is 10 times the repercussions for failing software, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is all true, don't get me wrong. But then the buyer side, the adopter side says, but you have no option. You either make a hardware widget or you leave. So I think it's great that you've got a software solution. Please leave.
Mm.
And then we sit around and we play with our magical numbers. So construction's an easy one. Construction's a $12 trillion market. I'm not exactly sure how many zeros are in a trillion, but it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, we will save that.
And then you just kind of zoom in that 1 millimeter and you go, and the only thing they'll accept is a hardware widget. They're not interested in the software. They just don't have the computers to run it. There are no edge devices there. So you make a handheld device and you've got a chance.
Mm.
Then you go back to the kind of financial backers and you're like, well, the road of software only points towards no. The road of hardware only points towards Mount Everest, in your mind at least. But
Mm.
at least it's a pot of gold at the end. So we've got definite no or a maybe no. We can sit back on the smirky side and think, well, hardware's not actually that hard. So let's just call it a moat because no one else wants to challenge us because they'd have to make this really difficult to make thing. But I think the traction is explainable in those industries. So
Mhm.
I'm going in circles, but really, customer normalized with the idea of having a hardware widget, no other option, and a big pot of goals at the end.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, good takes. Okay, could you, Nathan, could you just tell us like how did you get into this field? Like what, because I know you were doing some academic appointments at Stanford and in Australia. So how did you, like, what was the path to where you are now?
Oh,
And maybe even like, what do you actually do for people these days?
okay. So maybe I'll start with that because that's a little bit of context. So most of my background's really technical, lots of engineering, lots of theory, lots of robotics, lots of field robotics, lots of sensing and perception. So that will do with that.
Hmm.
Then I'm the youngest of four boys. The other three are long time unemployed because they got hit by different vehicles at a workplace. So whether it be a big mining truck or a forklift or a light vehicle, whatever, the end result is squish, can't work anymore.
Bloody yeah.
Then I was in a university somewhere doing sensing and perception stuff, you know, basically the eyes on a robot and just, my engineering kind of thread kept pulling on me thinking, gee, it'd be great to actually do something though. And then construction company kind of came along and said it would be great if you could do X, Y, and Z. And I said something glorious like, you're living in the past, mate. That would have been a challenge 30 years ago. Yeah, no worries, can knock that out for you. Then I think that little bit of tidbit I said leaked. And they got all excited. So that was nice. It's like, oh, okay, I could work on a thing that actually means something to me.
Mm.
Then I had the classic existential crisis of I've got a cushy job. Why would I quit that? They countered with, because we'll pay you a lot more and give you a lot more research budget. I countered with spectacular argument. I'm sold. And there you go. Off to the construction world where I made uh, basically a reverse camera that can see and think for itself. And then to be very honest with you and very brutal on myself, I just got addicted to what I'd call transfer tech. So here's a bit of IP. It's not quite cutting edge, maybe, but it's kind of, not something your mum's seen, maybe something that someone with a PhD's seen in one industry. That concept just doesn't even exist in another industry.
Mm.
If you pick and you put in whatever order you want to own, you pick, rail, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, construction, mining, that they all live somewhere between 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the past. So all those areas are just right for here's a new way to do something. You already know you need to do it. You already have appetite to do it. You sprinkle on the top. Those industries are all famous for their efficiency going through the floor over the last 10, 20 years. They're all super hungry. So I think yeah, I've been going for a while in that answer, but I think it started with passion and then it turned into achieving something and being addicted to the buzz of actually doing something.
Mm. What did you say you helped build in the construction industry?
So it's a little computer vision system. It's basically a reverse camera. So you think about this, like if you're driving your car to the shops, it's a bit annoying that the sensors go off when there's a paper bag flying past the back.
Hmm.
It's also a bit annoying that you've got to pay attention to the screen when you're reversing so you don't hit the bollard. Okay, that's a little bit annoying. You scale up to heavy industries where you might be driving 12 hours a day. And instead of your car, you're driving a 400-ton truck. So
Mm.
instead of hitting a bollard, you knock over a four-story building. Then all of a sudden, it's like, well, if the camera was more able to see and think for itself and maybe give me some insights, maybe some AI, maybe some sensing and perception, maybe some CNNs, then I could kind of rely on it as a coworker a little, at least a little bit to give me a heads up, watch out for something.
Mm. Okay.
That translates very simply into, the alarm goes off 5 times a day because there's 5 things you didn't want to hit, which is very, very useful in a 12-hour a day job. Whereas if you just directly transported what's in automotive into, let's say mining in that case, it would go off 12,000 times a day and you wouldn't be as useful.
Mm. Okay, interesting. And so, with that, you're now, like, what industries are you currently working in, or what do you work on, and your
Yes.
current sort of vocation, should I say? for lack of a better word.
Okay, so this is very culturally tuned. Australia's economy basically spins around with mining, construction, and advanced manufacturing. There are a few other bits and pieces littered here and there, and they're probably as important, if not more important. I don't know. There's a big chunk of the GDP in the ones I mentioned, and my background's engineering.
Mm,
I generally exist in those industries, and I would lump civil engineering, transport infrastructure all into construction. I would generally exist in those industries to help them adopt new ways to work, adopt innovation, adopt startups, adopt technology, unlock entrepreneurs, embrace entrepreneurs, whatever it may be, spin out, spin off, spin in for business reasons. It's remarkable. It kind of makes sense, but it's remarkable that very large companies tend to build up quite a solid wall of inertia. So they don't like to let anything in and they won't change anything. So they kind of defend their status quo and they exist there. And sure, okay, they have to do it. They've got, hundred billions of dollars revenue. So they've kind of got more to lose than they do to gain.
mm,
But if you think about it very simply, that's anti innovation. It's like, how can you do something differently if you don't change anything? Doesn't make sense. So it's really, I don't know how you want to simplify it, really shepherding or guiding new ways into business as usual.
mm. And could you give some examples of technology that you helped to bring into some of the larger companies?
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. So there's lots of things in sensing and perception, which is basically scraping information off an analog world or the real world and putting it in a digital form. So to translate it into an actual application. So I did a big thing in the UK, which is as glorious as unloading bricks off a pallet with a robot.
Mm,
And it was just, for all intents and purposes, meaningless. Like, a guy could do it himself. The advantage was the robot had to do a scan of the brick to be able to pick up the brick, which meant the QA that used to happen later, the forklift that used to move the panel to the area, and that angle grinder that used to cut it out, and the person that used to rework it in and re-put it back in, and the other QA, all that process disappeared. So it was really the kind of advanced sensing and perception that could do this QA on the fly and legitimizing it by putting a robot in there to actually manipulate that around, pick up the brick off the pallet, put it on the conveyor belt, so to speak, that actually made the factory go, okay, I get it, I understand it. That machine has a purpose.
mm.
But it was the radical change in the task flow that released the value to the company. So I think that's what differentiates maybe my mindset to a process optimization mindset, because that mindset really didn't have anything to do with enhancing the process. It really had more to do with rewriting the process by making it happen in a different way. So
Mm.
if we radically change how step one happens, you just don't need step 6, 7, 8. Whereas process optimization might make all the steps 10% better. So
Yeah. Okay, understood. So if like you work with larger companies, if they are, how do they typically engage you? I suppose they're within your right industry and they're thinking, oh, okay, we know we need to, like, do they have some form of problem statement, like related to something they know you can help with, and then do they know that hardware, robotics, automation is the solution, or do you have to kind of say
I,
to
I,
them,
I
convince
I
them otherwise?
absolutely wish step one is generally the other way around.
Yeah.
Step one's generally, maybe more education. So it's, you know, uh, you know, okay, an easy example springs to mind of a big miner. So I was recently talking to someone, VP in a big miner, just like, okay, you don't have to work very hard to get a robotics expert to say, I could shave 5% off your operating costs using robotics and automation. They don't have to go to the factory. They don't have to ask you what it does. They don't have to see anything. They'll just say it. Yeah, I can do 5%, no worries. 10%, probably. 20%, okay, I'm going to have a look.
Mm.
The simple education pathway started with, you know, said nice guy in the suit saying 5%, it's not really a lot though, is it? And me saying, but 5% of 150 billion is 7.5 billion.
Yeah.
So I would argue that is a lot. Um, and it wasn't, I'm not trying to make a big deal. It wasn't like confrontational. It wasn't a huge gotcha wet fish in the face type event. It was a more eureka moment of, oh, yeah, wow, you are right. That is the thing. We should just do that. And then step two is what you say. Step two is like, oh, okay, well, here's some processes we do. What could we change? What could we add in? What could we put? And I think that's the classic with maybe the ego-driven industries, or some would say
Mm,
heavy industries, of they tend to live in the unknown unknowns and and protect it at all costs. So the egos, their intuitions, their reputations all staked from being on the expert. So it becomes almost difficult to get them to move to, I know I need some help, or I know there's another opportunity, or I know I should bring in some advice.
mm. And so are you then looking when you do they have this realization, okay, Nathan can save us whatever, some money here in this process. Are you then, as the consultant, going to the startups within the market, or is it something that you build, or do you have like a catalog of trusted whatever it might be to help fix the solutions? Is it quite open at that point?
So it's a mix of that. I can't help but grind my teeth a little bit. I take offense to the consultant word.
Oh, sorry.
Consultants just like to try and string everything on forever and make money. I prefer the soft ones to get out of the way.
I'm glad
But
you said that. I won't use it again.
feel free, it's very common. Lots of people use it, but I can't help but get caught on it every time. Um, I think it's more kind of emergent, which is maybe a more design process familiar to maybe architects, maybe the creative arts. So it's more about going to a big company and going, look, I understand you're going to build a bridge. You build 100 bridges, they need to stand up. All 100. 90 is not good enough. There needs to be 100. I understand that's high stakes. I understand you have a plan. I understand that people are involved in the plan. I understand you document it. I understand you do it and measure it. I understand, what's that thing? Measure twice, cut once. I understand it. In the world of startups and innovation, though, that doesn't make sense. In the world of startups and innovation, you walk in and you see what's happening. So yes. So there is a bit of awareness and a bit of matchmaking of, a bit of awareness of what's going on, in the maybe creator space, and a bit of awareness of what's going on in maybe the need space or the customer space, and then some matchmaking of this could be good. Maybe you should try that. That in practice works because, you, to save, let's say, $100 million off an operation is viable. To save a particular $100 million is a challenge. So
Mm,
we've got a problem you need to solve. That's much harder than to solve any problem.
mhm, mhm.
Um, so I think the hard thing in there is, trying to convince, let's say, a bunch of engineers that the stumble forward and do things dumbly approach seems to work.
Mm, mm. So really slow incremental steps, is that what you're suggesting?
It's yeah, it's really kind of just don't compromise, I guess. So let's just say for a second you're from a startup, you do what you do, and company X does what they do, and there's a match, and there's just no need. We as in the startup world tends to overshoot, and I think a couple of my favorite analogies are, well, it's a bit out of date now, but Twitter doesn't make any sense. It doesn't do anything. It's kind of silly and pointless, and has no technical merit whatsoever. But on the other hand, that market cap's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Mm,
They seem There seems to be 10 billion people on the planet who don't agree with me and they think Twitter's awesome. Yes. And then the other one is, when did Microsoft start working? Was it Windows 3.1 that was good? Or was it 95 that was good? Or was it 98 that was good? Or was
yeah.
it 2000 or XP. I think we forget that as creators a lot and we try and make a good solution.
Yeah.
Our bar for good is potentially overshot. The problem we fall into is we fall into a crowd who are trained to find problems. That's the definition of engineer. You basically go to school for a long time, you get taught how to find a problem in every opportunity.
Hmm. So you think it's more about like getting in there and doing something rather than just like doing nothing, inaction.
Yes, and I'll put it. Yes, I do, and I'll put a dollar value on it just to make it make sense. Let's just say I could make you $5 and you could have that in a week, or I can make you $10 and you could have that in a month. And then we say, oh, but they're not mutually exclusive. I could do $5 a week and then hang around and they give you another $5 by the end of the month. I think a natural response from your side would be like, well, then why don't you do that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yet I don't understand why we're so obsessed with this grand reveal concept of let's plan it out, let's think it out, let's engage in a pilot, let's build up some mecca that's going to take us 10 years to deliver, and at the end
Mm,
it's not going to be quite right,
mm,
when we could just start and do something, and maybe we only shave 5% off the operating cost. But
mm.
5%, $7.5 billion, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, but presumably then the companies that the larger corporates are engaging at this point need to have something, or are they still really betting on like the founder of the business to deliver what they need?
I think this comes back to ego pollutes the people's ability to do math. So I can think of countless examples of big companies I've dealt with that have just said glorious things like, we need to save, I don't know, $100 million or it's nothing. We need to, do 10 million or it's nothing. And just talking to them and going, okay, well, this, is one more than zero? Which the answer is generally yes. And they go, well, then why don't we just aim for 1 million? I mean, we could still get the other 9 million in a second.
Yeah.
And then there's mismatches though. You pick your big company that makes $100 billion, and they're like, well, we really want to embark on a project that is going to make us 10 million. And you're like, well, that's spectacular, but let me translate that to a startup, which you have to remember speaks a different language to you. I know it sounds like they're speaking English, but they're not. And $10 million in your world is about 400 gazillion in their world.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so yes, why don't you just kind of, I don't know, throw them a bone, which might be 10 grand. Uh, Actually, that just kind of rage made me remember I was talking to a big construction company long ago. This was, I kind of came into the conversation to help a friend, and this big construction company had basically screwed him in a commercial deal, and he was going to wear about $5,000 in travel costs to go down and do a demo for this big company, and this company made over $10 billion revenue. And he was explaining to me over coffee, and I'm just like, yeah, this doesn't sound right. I want to go to the next meeting. So I went to the next meeting and I was just talking to the construction company. I'm like, okay, I'm a bit slow, but just help me get this through my head. You guys make about $10 billion a year, and those guys don't. Their last year revenue was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you reckon they should subsidize you to prove to you that the thing that they make would save you tens of millions of dollars? I don't get it. This doesn't sound like a good deal. To me, it sounds like they should get 10% of what they save, because that sounds fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's the percent of 10 million? That would be a million. So I reckon you should give them $1 million for the privilege of trying to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
quickly, okay, we'll pay the flight cost, no worries. And I'm like, oh no, sorry guys, the ship sailed on that. Now we're up for $1 million.
So so yeah, so okay, yeah. So they actually had a product. This company you were working with, they actually had a product that worked, that was proven already, right? To save them money.
Yeah, so they did, and
Yeah,
I think that's the Australian way. Just to blow my trumpet for a second, we have a very very poor and poorly spoken and inarticulate culture, but what we're good at is doing stuff and making stuff.
Mm,
So as a result, all our startups, all our emerging tech, we show, don't tell. So yes, a very early stage startup generally has a very complicated working something or other.
mm,
And our compass, our kind of quick and dirty prototype might be flash over to a different culture, like I don't know, Silicon Valley springs to mind straight away. Might be their year 3 version 2. And it's just a matter of us, okay, we're just used to having to make that. We're used to having to go through that because no amount of words can convince, the big minded that they should give it a go. What convinces them is tapping on the thing and sending it in and
mm,
and then obviously having it work.
hmm. Yeah, so I think your point, what I'm understanding here is that these larger companies should be more receptive to trying things in order to achieve whatever the cost savings or whatever their end goal might be, rather than trying to get like the perfect solution to save them X amount multiples more than what they have in mind
I,
for
I
working for a
agree
small.
with you,
Yeah.
but I just want to emphasize I don't think it's nefarious. So I don't think there's big companies out who are doing this to be mean or doing this because they're silly or whatever. I think it's just a different culture.
Yes.
There's a few simple things like, okay, if you spend 6 months to decide whether you're going to do it, you still have a job because if you work for a $10 billion company, probably. If you
Yeah.
work for a startup, probably not.
Yeah.
And it's just that
Yeah.
simple thing that a lot of big companies will go, oh, well, how would we check this and this and this? I'm like, well, you don't have to because I haven't done it. So there you go,
Yes.
check over. And
Yeah.
then silly little things like, and I've had even very silly things like, we need to see the last 10 years of balance sheets. You're like, well, that's going to be very difficult because the company was incorporated 6 months ago. They don't even have our balance sheet, let alone 10 years worth of them. And then like it could be a 2 or 3 month process to go through the lawyers.
Mm.
Oh, it's, yeah, I'm going to repeat, it's nothing nefarious. It's just a different normal business cadence, a different normal repercussion for decisions and repercussion for action or inertia and action and the mismatch.
Mm.
So, and you think about it like this, Owen, if you're working in a startup and the company makes $100 million revenue this year, that's going to be good for you personally, right? So maybe you own the company is really good for you.
Mhm.
Maybe you're just a worker in the company, it's still pretty good for you. All roads lead to it's going to be good to you. Flip that over to you're in a big corporate that makes $100 billion a year and you make $100 million a year. What do you care?
Yeah.
You don't get it. Doesn't go into your bank account. Your manager doesn't even know. Doesn't affect your line item. You might, you're not even going to get a gold star. You might get a bullet point on some executive presentation saying, I won't name you by name, but it might say your department did a good job this year.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wasn't good enough though.
oh, it's spectacular.
It wa
But you get what I'm, there's this different kind of ownerships and direct connections to
Yeah.
outcomes, activities, different cadence.
Yeah, I get it,
So
yeah. It's an interesting thing. I think a lot of it boils to, like you say, down to awareness, and that's where the world needs more people like you to marry the two worlds together because, it feels like they're probably not empathetic enough to one another to understand, how each other worlds operate. But it's also also completely required in order to, uh, embrace innovation. Otherwise, it just won't happen.
I I I I just so agree. So I think about myself personally and, having traveled around a bit, and the biggest culture shock I've ever got is going to places like England or America, and it's because we're too similar. We speak the
Mm,
same kind of language, we look kind of the same, most of our customs are kind of the same, it's just a few gotchas here and there, and that really just well, me anyway, really throws me off my game. I'll say I'll say something and there'll be a weird reaction, I'll just have no idea what's going on. Whereas I'll go to Japan or something, and yes, of course, everything's different. They look different, things do different, they speak a different language, everything's different. Okay, I get it. Uh, and I don't get, I don't feel like I get blamed the same way because of course, I didn't do the right thing at the right time. I'm not from here.
Mhm,
So
mhm. Mm.
I think corporates and startups are kind of like that because they kind of both think, well, we're in business, we're both speaking the same language, we're both kind of trying to do a shared outcome, but it needs someone with the spotlight to say something as simple as, no, you're not. Like, okay, I don't know. Here's a very easy one. Hey, startup, you want to change the world and make a better product because it's a no brainer to do a better job. Yep. You know, most people, corporates just want to scroll in all day and send their kids to school. Do you know that? Do you know they couldn't care less if the company made money or not?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about mismatching priorities? There's one.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Yeah.
the sales pitch is not how you're going to make your company an extra dollar. The sales pitch is how you're going to be even lazier and get more work done for less effort.
Okay, so is there something for startups to learn here? How they should be using their language or pitching or selling their solution into the corporates?
Yeah, yes, and I'll simplify that even more. And you would know this, and I'm sure everyone would know this. This is, I'm talking back to high school stuff. Tailor your presentation for the audience.
Hmm.
Just double think or rethink. This audience might look like us, might sound like us, and should want what we do. And remember, but they don't. And then everything else is okay. So, well, now I need to tailor to that audience. What does that audience care about? What resonates with them? What makes sense with them? And it's all kind of, you know, straightforward, known territory. I don't know what you want to say. It's achievable.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me of a conversation I had the other day where suddenly within the construction industry now there is a requirement for um, startups to have the correct security accreditation in order to be considered by a lot of the larger construction companies. SOC 2 is the one that always comes up. But
Yep.
then I asked the people we were discussing, does that rule out early stage then for them? And there wasn't really a straight yes or no. It was like, well, we still want to work with early stage, but we can't because they don't have the right accreditation because that takes however long it takes to get. So it seems to be that like whatever way you look at it, there is some kind of
Well,
like
you've just
clash.
given me a perfect example of what I'm
Yeah,
talking about. So I don't know much about British law. I'm going to go. Let me backtrack. I know very little about British law.
me too.
Did you know we stole a lot of our law from your law, though?
Yeah, I don't know too
Or
much
maybe
either.
I do and I just don't know. But anyway, in Australia, everything you said's true unless you send someone with a PhD and it's for evaluation purposes. Then it falls on the Australian Research Council. And then, no, you don't need to comply. You don't need to comply to standards either. You don't need to do any of that stuff. All you need to do is go, it's research. I've got a PhD.
Mm,
And that's it. So that doesn't last forever. Agreed. But the
mm.
reason not to try, the reason not to get it going, that's fictitious. And I hear all the time. I hear nothing but barriers. You don't have SOC 2, you don't have this compliance, don't have that compliance. And I say, squint really hard and just pretend you don't care because it's not real. Like, okay, it's cool. It's a very convenient, it's like the hardware's hard thing. It's a very convenient, catchy thing to say, but it's become a knee jerk.
Mm.
Okay, it's not that category though. That's a bit like saying, you know, I don't like your boat because it doesn't have seatbelts. Boats don't need seatbelts.
Hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one. What's your thoughts on how companies should or people building like robotic solutions should think about commercializing their startup? Maybe that's quite a broad question, but I'll let you take it how you
Yeah.
like.
So I'm okay. I'm doing. I don't know if anyone can see me. I'm doing the mental. How do I phrase this without being maybe offensive? It's as simple as focus on what you're good on. So maybe the tech guy is good at the tech. Maybe the business guy is good at creating the product, creating the opportunity. But then, hiring the domain expert. Get someone who speaks that language or can from that industry to broker those deals. And defense is just a really easy one. So defense has lots of money. You just have to get it in a particular way. And
Mm.
if you don't follow the rules, you don't get the money. And why are the rules? They're not going to tell you. So you need someone who knows them to join the team.
Ha!
Uh, you,
Yeah.
you can build your hiring strategy to complement your go to market strategy. So if you're targeting particular verticals, aim for some head of product or head of customer engagement or customer success or whatever you want to call them. That's from that domain, from that vertical.
Mhm.
So I think it's as simple as
Getting the right people in the right seats.
yeah.
Sounds of
There's
it.
yeah. Well, that's it. There's particular ways to do business. You need to, you can learn the hard way. But okay, maybe Australia's a lot smaller than the UK. So you pick mining, for instance. There's 5 big mining companies in the country. Sure, they're gigantic compared to the rest of the world. But when you're sitting on the startup side, you get 5 swings. And the problem is if you get the first swing wrong, they tell their mates. So,
Mm,
so you might only get 1 swing if it's a particularly bad one. You might get 5 ones if it's near misses. So you
yeah.
don't have time to learn by trying. So the classic fail forwards, which you might hear in the Silicon Valley, just doesn't work in this industry. It doesn't work in this environment, commercial setting. It's like, okay, well, you can't fail forwards because the bridge is going to fall over and people are going to die. And that's going to be a bad thing. That's going to make it hard to make the second sale.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. What's the
yeah, you bring in the
repercussions of
kind of
that?
expert how to do it, how to sandbox it, how to run it through that corporation, how to run it through that vertical, and it's possible.
Mm,
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
mm. Is there like some kind of role that, well, I mean, you are the man, right? But I mean, that could exist within corporates to I suppose what you see within construction particularly is you have uh like corporate venture arms or even innovation teams. I'm not sure how much like they would get to be able to control this because they obviously have their own parameters in which they work. But yeah, do you feel that maybe there's a better way to bridge it?
So you're asking me lots of questions at once.
Yeah.
So I I don't mind pondering into the ideal, but I'm also a wet sock. I also just think, no, that can't work. And it's
Yeah.
simple as you get indoctrinated, incidentally at least, by the people you're around. So, anyone hangs out with anyone long enough, they start sharing traits.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And then it's this critical mass. So, what's going to happen? Going to start a new department that's wide eyed, and that's going to be 10 people out of 50,000. How long do you give them before they like everyone else? So
Yeah.
what do you do? Hire 50,000 new people to put it inside the 50,000? It's still not enough to turn the tires, but that's probably not going to work. You'd have to hire 100,000 to turn the 50,000. Now
Mm.
we're in the land of the ridiculous. You want a simple analogy? It's Switzerland. Switzerland works because it's not part of the UK. So Switzerland could have the argument on behalf of the UK or to help the UK because it's Switzerland. And that way, Switzerland could say something to Germany. I'm just making up stuff, obviously.
Mm. 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 Mm.
And that's not going to be bad for you. You could still walk in and go, oh, silly, silly, silly Swiss. What he really meant is this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
could be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It goes back
that
to where it
works
was.
because there is this level of separation, and it would work because there was a shared value system. They actually wanted the same kind of outcome that you wanted, and there was trust. They trusted that if they got the door open, you would walk through it the right way and you wouldn't flip the table when you got inside the room. So that kind of broker triad Switzerland type relationship, that can work. And then that's also, has sustainability. So you'll find traditionally that was the kind of original university mindset of, they're not for hire, you can't buy the opinion. They'll tell you what's right, what's wrong. And just over time, it's kind of morphed off into, being focused on the fundamental science and, seeking more industry money, which is sent in a different direction. So it's kind of lost that role. But it's not a radically different concept. So I'm saying yes and no at the same time. No, I don't think you can hire the department into a corporation just because reality sucks. Yes, I do think it's surmountable.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, two places I want to go. One would be an interesting thing I just thought about. Is it better if you are a hardware company and you're trying to get into these large organizations? Would it be better to target someone like you as the champion and person who could break a few doors down for them, or are they better to go straight to? Maybe I know the answer. Straight to the people within the larger organizations already.
Oh, this is hard to answer without sounding self-serving.
Yeah.
I I think it's better to go through someone who knows the landscape. So and I'll give you a solid example. I talked to a miner not too long ago, or maybe it was a couple of years ago now, and said, "Here's this drone system that should help with that thing that you said was a problem," and that was literally the sales pitch verbatim. And the mine principal guy was like, "Well, what does it do?" And my answer was, I don't really know. And, I don't really care. It's like, well, how do I know if it's useful? I'm like, "Well, that feels like a you problem, mate. Well, how do I know if I should do it? Again, that's you. Well, what can I do? I'll introduce you to them."
Yeah.
But what that did in reality, apart from me feeling good because I'm a facetious idiot, what it did in reality was it saved 5, 10, 15 steps. It didn't sit on someone's desk, didn't get evaluated, it didn't get shot down because they used, I'm just making stuff up, used lithium polymer batteries instead of lithium ion batteries, or didn't have SOC 2 or whatever. Just went straight to the engineers who run the job of, okay, just imagine all the engineering was done to make this viable bot from your business. Would you actually want it? Because at the end of it, that's the question. We are hung up as a culture, especially an industrial culture, with doesn't meet the engineering requirements. And there's an easy answer to that: money.
Mm.
If you want it to meet a standard, pay an engineer and give them the standard and say, make it meet that standard. If you want it to have a certification, same answer. Pay an engineer, give them the certification, say, make it meet that certification. If you want it to have purpose, that's not going to work by throwing money in a room full of engineers. That's going to work by talking to the person who's going to use it and saying, yeah, so all the things you could do, is this one of them?
Yeah.
If you get that answer to that, and that's the one you can't fake, if you get that answer to that, then everything else can just be done. So it's a bit like that kind of Mount Everest analogy. So if people really want to walk up it, it can be done. Well, not by me, but someone's done it. But if you don't know you want to walk up it, or if you're not sure you want to walk up it, or you never thought about walking up it, you're not going to make it, mate.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Interesting. How do companies then get onto the right? Like, what's interesting for you? What makes you go, yeah, okay, yeah, this is interesting. I'm now gonna recommend this to someone I work with.
So generally, it's a couple of things. It's, do I want to be around these people? Because the reality is, I'm going to have to talk to you again if I do business with you.
Mm,
If I dread it, that's a bad way to start. If I'm happy about it, that's a good way to start. So maybe the first intro won't work, but they'll like you and you'll get onto the second, you'll get on the third, whatever. The next one is what they're trying to do somehow useful to these people? And it doesn't have to be exact fit. Close enough is good enough. Because I'm a strong advocate for the last mile is vital, but the person who knows the last mile knows the address of where they live.
mm,
And the person who knows this address is the company who's adopting the tech. So they should have their hands on their last mile, whatever. But you can't fake that. If it's somehow useful, somehow fittable, somehow envisionable into something they do, then okay, it's value driven, not sales driven. And I love value driven stuff because you can meet an engineer and go, I don't know, the computer says yes. What's the problem? The last one is, can they actually deliver? Are they reliable? Will they actually deliver? So it's very cliche, but there's nothing more credible than the guy who says they're expert on a lathe that's only got 4 fingers left. You're like,
mm,
oh wow, that's believable, mate. Really, really, I really, really feel like you've been around machines for a while. So when you say you can handle a lathe, I believe you.
mm-hmm.
So it's that kind of vibe where someone says something to you and you're like, he said it's going to be here on Tuesday. I really feel like it's going to be here on Tuesday. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So, so what's
Uh,
that? Somehow useful, somehow going to deliver, somehow good to be around.
yeah.
But it has a mix. Then it has this nice feeling of, okay, there'll be no hard feelings. So maybe I'll introduce the company, maybe I'll open the door, and maybe it won't work out, but no one's going to be mad at me because of it. That
Mm.
company's going to be like, oh, well, that's a shame. That startup might be, oh, well, that's a shame. But no one's going to be, oh, God, what are you doing? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting takes. What about when companies get first in? Like, it's typically in the sector, is it through a pilot process that people have to get through and pass?
oh, God, no. I hate the P word. And everyone who listens to me, first thing is take with grain of salt and think for yourself. And the second thing is heavy industries are notorious for separating innovation teams with operations teams, and pilots are the world of the innovation team.
Mm,
Innovation teams like to measure, 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 check, analyze, measure, measure, check. So you do get stuck in this pilot purgatory where you just go over and over again, checking, doing pilot. Maybe the 3-week trial pilot turns into a 4-week pilot, turns into a 3-month pilot, whatever. So maybe you are making progress, but I don't know. My kind of favorite go to is just to call people's bluff. Because a lot of companies say they want to pilot something first. And I say, yeah, it makes perfect sense, mate. Perfect sense. Like when you're in the market for a new car, you go into a car dealership and go, oh, I'm not sure about cars. I don't know. You didn't make this one last year. Never seen this before. I'm going to need to try it for 3 months to make sure it's actually a car. And you should pay me for the privilege of me trying it. No, that doesn't happen, does it? You just walk in and buy the car and walk out. Maybe if you're conservative, you take it for a 15-minute drive before you spend $50,000 on the car. So pilots are an artificial construct to make it the innovation theatre world spin around,
yeah.
whereas operations, especially engineering-driven operations, are just the world of necessity. Like it either works or it doesn't. There's no need to pilot. If it doesn't look like it's going to work, it never got turned on. It does look like it worked, it never got turned off. Like there's nothing to pilot. It either does it or it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. But do you not think that pilots are necessary when you're trying when like an industry is emerging? Like the people are sort of like no one really wants to I say this quite a lot on it, but I think it's such a true statement that no one got fired for hiring Oracle because it's just like it's always a safe option and why would you try other things? But then perhaps you have to reduce the barrier to entry, and maybe one way by doing that is by literally doing a pilot.
I, I'm hearing what you're saying, and it's making logical sense. I've got an overwhelming sense of no.
Yeah.
So if you think about it as a decision tree, by making the first port of entry a pilot, you've decided how the rest of your life's going to unfold. So yes, there's an argument for everything you just said, but the reality seems to be as soon as you say you're doing a pilot, a different stakeholder crew turns up, a different assessment criteria gets put in place, a different set of hoops get unveiled. And if you're kind of savvy or been there before, you can see that you're being steered away from business as usual and you're being steered into the world of being measured. So yes, it does make it feel like you're doing something. And yes, there is a place with it. So, doing, I don't know, revenue dealing pilot with a big corporate, it looks cool on your website. It looks cool on your pitch deck for the next VC. But, getting that $100,000 pilot to turn into $1 million order is is not a linear step. It's a side step to a different department and then a step.
Mm. So maybe penetrating a company via a different department versus going through the department which loves a pilot.
And there's it's we're talking a pricing game or commercial game. There's easy ways to do it. It's kind of like okay, sandbox it in operations and use it for 6 months. And if you're not happy, you don't pay. And if you are happy, you back pay.
Yeah. Mm.
And then all of a sudden, for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing, right? You got a 6 month trial, but You're talking to the people who do the business as usual, OpEx, CapEx, and can then sign you in forever. So
Yes.
commercially or
Yeah.
structural wise, it's completely different, and you're in the right part of the business. Um, Mentally for them, it should be the same thing. You're like, well, you only pay if you're happy, and you frame this yourself. You're like, okay, so we will sit down before we start, and we'll work out the shared definition of success,
Mm.
and we'll create those boxes, and we'll work with you over the next 6 months to either tick them or put scary faces in them. And at the end, it'll be nice and crystal clear whether it worked or not. And
Mhm.
then there's just nothing to talk about. If it worked, keep going, start paying. If it doesn't work, sorry for wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah, and if your product does there should be a fit between the person with the problem and the person with the solution. So if the solution does what the person's problem is, then technically it should work. Like there
Well,
shouldn't be
that's
an
it.
issue.
Yes. So, I mean, yes, exactly. So, heaps of people subscribe to software, heaps of people have mobile phone connections, heaps of people pay Netflix subscriptions, whatever. You do it because it works.
Yes.
Like, paying for the convenience, I'm paying for the link, I'm paying for the functionality, I'm paying for whatever. ROI is there. That's it. If I asked you how much did you spend on Netflix over the last 5 years, you're not going to have an answer because it becomes invisible. You're just like, well, I don't even know if you subscribe to Netflix, but you get the analogy,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
who doesn't?
Then you just kind of like, well, I mean, that's like breathing, mate. Yes, I do. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I get it, yeah. Mm. So as long as you set up the success criteria at the start, you can get over the hurdle of, um, like, I guess when you first go into a company, it's not going to be perfect. So you get over that pursuit of perfection by defining what the success or outcome of the 6 month, whatever period you might call it, is.
Yeah.
Um, and then it should just be, yes, it sounds a lot more straightforward than getting
Yeah.
stuck in the pilot purgatory.
Well, well, the big kind of stumbling block, or the number one reason why startups and corporates talk past each other, is a whole TRLs do not equal CRLs. So then that's a whole how good's the tech versus how well does it fit in the business. So technical, commercial readiness levels,
Hmm.
and technical readiness levels is the world of the startup. So does it work? What does it do? What features have I got? How can I make it better? What's version 2 look like? What's the roadmap look like? So just by default, they think like that. Commercial awareness is the world of business or big business of corporates. They don't think about whether things work or not. They think about whether things can be leveraged to make their money.
Mm.
So it's it's similar, yes, agreed, but a bit of different language.
Hmm.
So the process you're talking about, or I don't know who talked about it first, the process we're talking about is really just clarifying that gap, but in a completely non-confrontational way.
Hmm.
So what would you have to see to consider success is a CRL question. What business? Because they're not going to say, I'd have to see the light flashing green. They're going to say, I'd have to see the revenue numbers going like this,
Yeah.
going up or something. So it becomes a very non confrontational way for the startup to maybe get educated in the CRLs that matter to the business, and for the business to get educated to worry less about how the Mercedes is serviced behind the scenes and think of it more as just dropping the keys at the front desk and walking away and knowing that they're going to get a improved car later in the day.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's how it should be. Straight to it. Where do you see in the next 5, 10 years of robotics and physical world uh, evolving to?
Yes, it's really, I find it really interesting. So there's kind of two schools of maybe parallel outcomes in robotics. I'll do I think yucky one first. So you see backflipping robots on LinkedIn all the time, and I'd put them into pop style entertainment category. I don't think it's going to go away. People think it's cool, right? And fair enough. Like robots washing dishes, robots vacuuming, robots doing backflips. People just think it's cool. There's a million and one reasons why it might not work, can't work, shouldn't work, couldn't work, did work. I don't know. It's all got a healthy layer of who cares. Um, go straight to business, you have to sell to 10 billion customers instead of just 5 companies. So business says, gee, that's hard. But anyway, that's definitely one school. The other school is probably the one that I think is already there, which is the invisible robotics. So it's stuff like your fridge knows when it's out of milk and it orders some more. All your
Mm.
devices are connected. You can talk to your mobile phone now and it knows what you want and answers you. Your computer, well, so ChatGPT has got built into Apple devices, right? So you seriously can say to your phone, like, tell me about this obscure topic, and then go, oh, that's interesting. But really do a deep dive and give me a good understanding of it. And it will say something like, come back in an hour and I'll tell you all about it. That's your phone. So, and we've got cars. So I don't know what kind of car you drive, but a lot of European cars now, German cars,
Yeah,
won't
Volkswagen.
let you change lanes if you don't have the blinker on. It just doesn't let you do it. The steering wheel just stops working. You
Yeah,
try
yeah.
and it just won't go across the line until you put your blinker on. Then all of a sudden you can do it. So I find it just mind-bogglingly fascinating. People say, when a robot's got to come, and I'll say, what are you talking about? Look around. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you, you've got this car that's making decisions for you, trying to work out what you're trying to do and saying, no, I'm not going to let that happen. But you don't consider that a robot. You have microwaves that go, you press 2 minutes, but the food's still cold, so I'll just do an extra little bit. But that's not a robot. You have TVs where you can hold the remote control up and say, don't let me miss an episode of whatever. And the TV will change the channel at the time for you. That's not a robot. So I don't know. I think the grand point is more and more things are becoming intelligent, autonomous systems, robotized, at least in aspects, if not full on systems, but they're tending to be invisible. And I think that's just going to become more and more predominant over the years. So, your widget can do more and more stuff.
Mm.
But I think there will always be a spot for backflipping robots because people have got to scroll LinkedIn during the day. Otherwise, they get bored.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, yeah, we have to be entertained. So, yeah, that's just part of
Well, that's it,
life.
right? Not many people go home and do work at night time. Most people go home and watch TV, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, you're right. Nathan, you also do some venture capital partner, venture partner role as well. What do
Yep.
you see? What's your kind of experience and takeaways from that habit? 'Cause you kind of intersect with. We didn't get a chance to touch on it today, but the academia
Oh,
side, the startup side, the corporate side.
it's a
Seems like you have your toes in a few
fascinating.
different places. So.
Well, I get that, and I get that quite a lot. So there might be 3 or 4 different bullet points on my CV, but just for your sake and everyone's sake, they're all pointed at exactly the same thing, and they're just different perspectives on the same thing. So, you know, I don't know if you feel bad for me, but don't feel bad for me. They're all all circling around the same sun, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing quite like being in the industry to get an understanding of it. So, the kind of maybe startups, oh, it's a no brainer that they'll want it will save them millions of dollars, just doesn't work on corporates. VCs are similar. They have their own kind of investment criteria. And there's lots of insights, lots of red lines, like things like, so your company might make $1 million, but his company might make two. And I only have enough money as a VC to back one of you. So there you go. So, it's one of those glorious things. It's like the 100-meter sprint in the Olympics. You come second, no one cares. It's one of those glorious things where you can do really, 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 really good and lose.
Mm.
Um, but it just doesn't make sense from the outside. And you know, I don't know. Have you ever seen that show, Little Britain? Where,
Yeah.
the computer says no is Dave's favorite thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit like that. It's like, so a lot of good conversations will have a lot of good rapport will have. And at the end, the computer will just say no. So the investment committee will say, no, we've already got one in our portfolio, no. Or another very simple thing is funds typically have a deployment stage where they spend new money to new capital, new investments, a reinforcement stage where they'll sink more money into current investments, and it just look cool and wait for the return stage where they don't do anything but try and look cool and just wait for their money to come back. And they're almost predictable. They're almost, Googleable, those terms, and you can find out how long they are in years. And you
Mm,
can just sort of say, like, when did the fund start? And if, let's say it's 3 years, 3 years, 3 years, the fund started 7 years ago, well, you're in phase three.
mhm, mhm.
It's that easy. And then it's a really interesting insight that you might have the best option in the planet, but if you're talking to a VC who's in stage three, I've got no money to give you, mate. It's just not going to happen. I can't tell you I've got no money because my reputation rides on me having lots of money. So I'll make up some silly excuse why you can't have the money. But
Yeah.
the reality is I don't have any money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've read about this, dichotomy before where,
Yes.
they'd take
And again, it's a bit
meetings.
like the corporate thing. There's nothing to be offended by. There's nothing nefarious in it. It's just the way it works.
It's just the way it
Like,
is. That's the way the world operates, yeah.
as soon as
May
you know it, you go, okay, well, I can deal with that. I can work around that. And
yeah.
unfortunately, it's one of those counterintuitive things. Because I think I was an engineer creator first, just doesn't make sense. Like in my mind, kind of works. The best idea wins,
Mhm.
but not everyone's mind works like that, or not everyone's definition of the best is the same as mine. So, I mean, it took a long time to find out, and maybe I've got learning difficulties. Some of it was more believable through going through it than it was hearing about it. But yeah, got there eventually, and just like, okay, well, computer said no. I also think that's silly, but the computer did say no.
Computer isn't it? Okay, last question then. Would you say is the worst piece of startup advice that, people give that you think is just complete crap?
Oh wow, there's heaps, right? Probably probably the biggest is if you search, you can find where you should be or where the customer is or where the right place is. I think that is potentially damaging because it's human nature to blame other people first. So let's just say I've started a company made a product and you're my customer and you didn't buy it. I potentially should take that hard learning on board and go, okay, well, it's not quite right. I need to fiddle it and do it straight away and fiddle it and get it back to you. And you can say that's better and happy days. Unfortunately, this world seems to be filled with tropes like move to San Francisco, move to Silicon Valley, don't worry about it. They're just bad customer, go to Tel Aviv, whatever. And it's really appealing because I kind of think, as a startup founder, I kind of think, good, it's not my fault. And that does sound like a nice place to live. I'm off. The reality
Yeah.
is I get, and a bad idea is a bad idea. And there is such a thing as a bad idea. And the reason you didn't like it, especially when engineers are involved, the reason you didn't like it is not because you're an idiot, it's because it wasn't useful. And it doesn't matter if I'm a nice person or not. If it's useful, you would have liked it. So
Mm.
I really don't like that because I, I just I just think it's very unhelpful.
Mhm, mhm. Nice. Cool. All right, Nathan. Well, look, we're at the end, so thank you so much. Is there any initiative you're running at the moment? Are you searching for a certain type of company or whatever it might be that you would like to plug here? Feel free to do anything.
I'm not a huge plugging type guy. Feel free to search me. Basically, a footprint in my life is to try and create opportunities to break the status quo. So I'm doing a big event in Perth in a couple of months, which is just that. It's just okay. I'm quite literally sick of trade shows where everyone just goes and does their business posturing and swaps business cards and nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
So the thing I'm organizing is a bit more like, okay, why don't we just cut the potatoes? And instead of 5 days of nothing, we'll do 1 days of free alcohol and some bands and some food trucks and some cool demos and a handout. And then everyone can just kind of hang around and talk. And if you like someone, find their name in the handout and pass it on when you get back to your company.
Hmm. What do you mean by handout?
Like a physical brochure, a menu of kind of options.
Of people
The
that
thing is
are
to
there?
scale up to get like, people from government, people from defense departments, people from big space agency, big miners, they're all name shy. Get them to be there and then just say, okay, some emerging tech companies, get there and just walk around when are you ever going to get in front of these people again? Just go there and say, we do this, this, and this. Someone says, I'm kind of interested, say, page 4. And on page 4 is the blurb you wrote, link to your website, link to your email address, your QR code, whatever the hell you
Oh,
want. And at the end, I get to go home after 1 day instead of 5 days. And all that people ever remember is, did they care and to do something?
mm,
So you make people care by dropping the crap, dropping the trade both and just having a beer or hanging out on a hot dog or whatever. And the brochure is just a perfect thing to hand out because, like, okay, here's 40 pages. Put it on page X and hand it to your ex worker and say, do that, would you?
that's cool.
So,
I like this different approach. Yeah, we see that so much in our industry. Okay, Nathan, thank you for joining. Much appreciated.
no, it
And
was
good
it
luck
was
trying
fun.
to
Sorry to go on so much.
change the world.
Hey, mate, you got one life. I would rather fail at something that I think's a good idea than succeed at just Friday 9 to 5 and phoning it in.
Fair enough. Great way to end. Thanks, Nathan.